I am totally ready. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week number three, somewhere between 3 and 4. Playdate. It's really nice to have you all here. If you're wondering why I'm up here and not Phyllis, it's because Phyllis is giving the talk today. And so she's made me come up here and make a fool out of myself. But I do have her notes here, so this is going to help me get through stuff. So let me go through Phyllis's notes really quick. I'm supposed to introduce myself because it says intro me. I'm the executive director of the Institute for Creativity, Arts, and Technology here at Virginia Tech. First thing is to let you know you are being recorded on a 360 camera, so just remember that you will be on the internet in perpetuity, backed up with all sorts of Google things. Sign in. Oh yes, there's a sign-in sheet going around. The sign-in sheet helps us justify the 6,000 donuts that we have over there. So please sign the sign-in sheet. The main thing is that we, at the end of Phyllis's talk, we are going to have time for questions, both in person and online. So online people, welcome. And please enter your questions in there, and I will hopefully be able to read them on my phone. For those of you faculty online or here, we have PDN credit for attending, and there's some sort of magical QR code over there that you can get PDN credit for attending here. I really did think that QR codes were a passing fad 4 years ago. Little did I know. And now, some announcements of things coming up. And this is very, very important because it's a really rapidly approaching date for faculty online. Faculty here, if you can, not just yourselves, but can tell other folks, our mini seed grant is due very shortly on September 16th. Remember that we've changed our mini seed grants from being monthly to being semesterly, if that's a word. And they're now $6,000 to fund equipment, to fund students to work with you, and to help you do your projects. So don't forget that date, September 16th. The student seed grants are due on October 7th. So again, please spread that to your students. It requires at least a student from 2 different schools or departments to be on the seed grant. And we like to have at least 3 students on the seed grant. We also have a special program that we're doing with another institute, the Institute for Critical Technologies and Applied Sciences. They've had a program for the past few years now where if faculty from HBCUs and from Virginia Tech work together, they can apply for a seed grant. It's originally was $10,000 a year, and now ICAT is matching that, so it will be $20,000 a year for 2 years. The requirement to get the ICAT top-up is that faculty and students either from the HBCU or from Virginia Tech must be in the arts or design. Somebody must be from the arts and design. They can be in either organizations. If you have any questions on these upcoming dates or anything, just send me an email, and hopefully I can get you answers for that. So, did I get everything? Okay. So I would like to introduce Phyllis Newbel. Phyllis and I sat in the corner offices above a tanning salon at the beginning of ICAT over a decade ago. And since then, she's been working with several other faculty to help grow what has now become CENI, the Center for Educational Networks and Impacts. And one of the things that CENI does once a year is create this thing called the Virginia Tech Science Festival, which has gone through many journeys, and maybe some of those you will talk about over the years, but it's a really, really neat festival that showcases the broad reaches of what the science and arts are involved in, and it's really become a neat event once a year. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Phyllis to tell us more about it.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad you are here. So I'm Phyllis Newbel. My title is Associate Director of Educational Networks, which is something that has evolved over the years as well, and I'm in the Center for Educational Networks and Impacts within ICAT. I want to start by talking about when we're talking about the Virginia Tech Science Festival, what we mean by science. Because sometimes people look at the name, the Science Festival, and say, oh, that is not me. I am not science. But I would argue that it probably is you if you're part of campus. We mean science as a way of thinking rather than that collection of facts. So we're talking about scientific thinking, using good information to make decisions and come to conclusions. So my academic journey started in kind of the earth sciences. I started as a geoscientist and went into instructional design. And as I studied more design, as I got into ICAT, I really love how design and science work very similarly in that you have an idea and you get input on your idea, or you collect data on your idea, and then you make decisions based on that. All that is scientific thinking, whether we call it design thinking, we have different words. But I want to make it clear that the arts, science about the arts, arts about science, poetry about science, human sciences, science communication, all of the different colleges at Virginia Tech are welcome and part of the Virginia Tech Science Festival. We talk about audiences too. So when I talk to, we talk to our liaisons in the schools, and I'll talk more about those in a minute, when I talk to them and say Virginia Tech Science Festival, they say, yes, we love this. Our teachers know what to do. We can join this. If I could change it internally to let the folks at Virginia Tech know what we're doing, I would call it the Virginia Tech Children's Festival. But you can't do that outwardly because children don't like to be called children. So anyway, just know that it is about bringing the fun stuff at Virginia Tech to children. So I'm going to put this in the context of CENI and what we do. This Center for Educational Networks and Impacts has, again, evolved over the decade and a half we've been working on this. And so there's three pieces that we talk about. We talk about inspire, connect, and impact, and that's going to kind of frame what we're doing here today. So starting off with, how does the Science Festival inspire? And just so that I let you all know, I'm talking today to faculty. I want to talk to faculty and students. This presentation is not about, yay, Science Festival, bring your kids, although please do. But this is about for the faculty and talking about that in that context. So who are we trying to inspire? Of course we're trying to inspire children. We'd love for children to have STEM interests and to see themselves as people who think critically. We love for children to create those identities. One of the great ways to reach families is through children. So we're also trying to inspire families. I love this picture of the guy with the white beard in the VR goggles. We're also, the inspiration though doesn't stop on the other side of the table, if you will. One of the things that we hear really consistently from students and faculty is that they come away from the festival feeling quite inspired. They remember why they chose their professions or why they chose their studies. The questions that children ask and that families ask help people kind of reflect on their disciplines and their work. So note that the inspired is not limited to the guests of the festival. It's also part, we want that to happen for the students and faculty as well, and it does. We're also inspiring, we hope, community members and the K-12 educators. So we'll talk more about the field trips that are coming as well. How do we inspire? New ideas, new audiences, new futures. The contagious enthusiasm. During the pandemic, I asked some regular Science Festival attendees, how can we can't do the Science Festival, obviously, during the pandemic, because it's super crowded and everyone's touching everything and in everybody's spaces. So I asked some folks that regularly come to the festival, what is it about the Science Festival that makes it what you want to do? And one of my favorite other children said, I really like being in the room where that many people are geeking out about science. And you know, her home is not necessarily all the way science friendly all the time. So for her, having that experience of all of these people around her all of them celebrating science. So that contagious enthusiasm was super inspiring for her. Let's move to the next one. How do we connect? A lot. The Science Festival looks like a one-time thing where we bring it all together and we have a giant thing and then we go away again. But that's actually not what happens. There are a number of networks that are working like gears in the background, and the Science Festival both feeds into and is an output of those networks. So the campus engagement, I'm going to talk about each of those networks in a minute. The Campus Engagement Network, those are folks on campus or part of Virginia Tech. I mean, so many of them are actually off campus, but off the Blacksburg campus. The Educator Liaison Network, the newly named, it's my favorite one, so I hope you like it, Inspiration and Outreach Network, that's ION, and the CENI Student Network. All of these things are working together in the background. And how are we connecting? So there are workshops. So all of the students and faculty who are doing a presentation or doing at a table during a science festival or other CENI event are invited to workshops that help them know how to talk to kids better and how to work with kids with autism and families with, even adults with autism. There's also a lot of shared information. So at our regular meetings, people are talking about, hey, how did you handle this issue that came up? And then we also, from the Science Festival, we end up with a list of a whole lot of people who have outreach things prepared. And so when we get a call from a school or a museum and they say, hey, we're doing a thing about space or birds or spooky things, do you have anything? I've got this whole list, and say, yeah, how about these three? And everything is voluntary, of course. People can decide whether they want to do another thing, but those future outreach opportunities are coming from the Science Festival. I do want to say a little bit more about these networks. So the Campus Engagement Network is made up of representatives from each of the colleges on campus, some of the sustained outreach programs like Hokie Bug Fest, 4-H, the College Access Collaborative. So these are folks on campus who are working with K-12 and lifelong learners. We have a meeting about once a month, and we discuss whatever is up in the world of education on campus. I want to say something about the College Access Collaborative. They are a major partner, and 4-H. Both of those are major partners for the Science Festival, because one of the things that we do, we learned in the first few years of Science Festival that we were doing a great job of putting together amazing science, but our audience was pretty much all local families, which is great. We love our local families, but we wanted to reach further and reach some folks that wouldn't otherwise come here. So we worked with College Access and with 4-H in order to get charter buses and bring them from some counties that College Access is working with where we don't get a lot of applicants to Virginia Tech. So we bring in those buses, and we'll talk more about that, but there's, the last time we had an in-person festival, we had about 700 kids that came as part of field trips from 10 different school districts. And they came from all the way from Norfolk, they came down from Patrick and Henry counties, and out from the southwestern corner of the state as well. We also work with our Educator Liaison Network. There are 4 public school systems plus the Science Museum of Western Virginia that are part of that network, as well as some pieces of Virginia Tech that are not right on campus in Blacksburg. So these folks represent a school system or an informal learning space. They come and spend a day with us every week. So on Thursdays, there are folks from Floyd County, Radford City, Montgomery County, and Pulaski County schools with us in our office. And we're talking about what's happening in schools and what people need in order to have field trips that are useful. Those folks facilitate bidirectional communication, and they facilitate research access. So when faculty want to go into a school, we can work with them and work with those liaisons to make that happen. I mentioned the Inspiration and Outreach Network. So these are the folks that are actually behind the tables at the Science Festival. So these are our student clubs, our faculty doing outreach. Yeah, so that's anybody that's creating a thing for the festival as part of that community. And then finally, we have our student network. Kalila is representing this morning. Hi, Kalila. So the CENI Student Network, we have some volunteers and paid staff in our office. and they are learning how we do all these things and managing many pieces as we move through the process of creating a festival. All right, now let's move to impact. We like the word impact. We just like verbs, connect, inspire, impact. But when we're talking about impact, we're talking about measuring impact. So Chelsea's here also. Everybody say hi to Chelsea. Chelsea Haynes is kind of handles she's our Associate Director of Broader Impacts. So at the Science Festival, how do we know if we're making a difference? I'll tell you it's really hard. The impacts that we're trying to make are lifetime impacts, and those are, they build on each other. So people coming to one science festival, will it change their life? Maybe, maybe not. But we hope that it will. So the real impacts are happening 10 and 15 and 20 years down the road as these kids that we're talking to are growing up. But we're also there are ways to measure. So we're counting, we're standing at the door clicking as people are walking in the door. There are surveys that go out to the teachers on those field trips and the students on those field trips, and then the public is invited to do those as well. We do observations. There's playful evaluations, so this is where it looks like a game, but we're collecting data on, put a red block on the sculpture if you agree with a statement, kinds of things. There's lots of ways to make evaluation fun and not necessarily like a worksheet. When people apply to be part of the festival, we collect that information so that we know how we're doing. There's also anecdotes and reflections. For faculty, though, I want to make sure that I say broader impacts are part of any NSF and many other kinds of grants. And those broader impacts, NSF and those funding organizations are looking for ways that they can make sure that you're going to have a good experience, that you're actually going to be able to do the impact that you put out there. So the Science Festival is already organized. You already have an audience. You just need to bring your science or your experience to that festival. So we actually partner with a number of researchers to try to get to work with their broader impacts. So this year, I think there are 3 grants that are supporting the festival, and there are more in the pipeline. Just know that that's an option for you. NSF seems to like that. They would much rather researchers work with someone who's already working with children than to say, I'm going to run my own camp. Why do we measure impact? One is because of, obviously, funding organizations want to know what our impacts are, and we need funding. So we also want to get better all the time. So that continuous improvement, we get feedback to know that, hey, this thing didn't work, or that thing we tried, people got really grumpy about that. We actually haven't had anybody get grumpy about things, but when we do, we'll fix it, and we'll know about it. But it encourages investment to be able to say what those impacts are, and also for your grant proposals and reports. So each time we have an event, we generate an evaluation report that says how many people came and what kind of feedback they gave us. And then folks who came to the event, I can tell when all kinds of reports are due on campus, because I'll get the emails that say, can you tell me more about how many people came or what groups or whatever? And having that data at our fingertips makes those relationships work. So a few of those impacts, just so we can share them. Of course, it's hands-on experiences. The target audience is children. In pre-pandemic years, we've had 3,000 to 6,000 people per day or at the event, which is a lot of people. We have kind of no idea what to expect post-pandemic. In many things in the last year or so have been much decreased attendance from pre-pandemic, but there's a kind of a new energy that's happening right now, and we're seeing, I know the fossil unpacking party had about double what it had previously had, so we'll see how many people come this year. Previously, we've worked with about 10 school systems, so those field trips, bringing 700 or so kids to campus. Typically, we've had 80 to 100 exhibitors, and we work through the Moss Art Center and Newman Libraries and some of the spaces in between. And then there are many connections that happen for those partner events, like STEAM Day in Roanoke and Hokie Bug Fest and STEM nights at schools and things like that. So that's happening all the time. So this is the invitation. CENI cordially invites faculty, students, and community members from all disciplines to bring your most inspiring ideas, demonstrations, experiences for children to the Virginia Tech Science Festival on November 12th. I bet you'd like to know how to do that. As it happens, I have a link right here, and I also have some handouts for you if you would like to take those with you or distribute it to someone else that you know. We'd love for you to be a part of the festival. We'd love for you to join in that whole concept of inspiring and connecting and impacting, and just be part of our group. So that concludes the presentation, and I've got time for some questions.
Thank you very much, Phyllis. As I mentioned right at the beginning, this is something that we've been working on for over a decade now, and the impact that it makes on the community, the K-12 community throughout the Commonwealth, is enormous. And I always feel like this is exactly, as a land-grant university, this is exactly the kind of thing we should be doing, and this is terrific. So thank you very much. And are there any questions that people have? Tim.
Thanks, Phyllis. I'm Tim Baird. I wonder if you could give some examples of social science projects that have been a part of the Science Festival in the last few years. Often we think of science, we don't think of social science, but we should.
Absolutely.
So for social scientists who may be thinking about this, what are some examples of successful projects?
So obviously technology is such a gateway drug for kids to get into anything. So we've had some really cool VR experiences in history. So I'm talking about Vauquois. So that was a really great one. So that's people put on headsets and experienced in real time what it was like to be inside of these tunnels, wartime tunnels. There was a great project on the Spanish flu epidemic. That I'm thinking of some history examples. There are anything that's presenting data. So I will say this: if you have a poster that you made for an academic conference that it presents data, don't bring it, because it's boring and kids don't want to see it. We get that question every year, so I have very diplomatic ways to answer that, but just don't bring those. But there are great ways to show data. So anything that's collecting data, we want to see that. We want to see how we visualize data visualization projects. We love those. So if we're looking at how to, and talking about the process, that's something I should really focus on a little bit more. We talk a lot about the products. We're excited about our products. Yay, we finished, there's a conclusion. But for kids who are learning about science as a way of thinking, even if you're not finished with the project yet, that you're collecting data, how are you collecting data? Where is that coming from? What are you hoping to find out? Even that is really cool to talk about. And for kids, a lot of times if we ask kids, even at other science festivals, if you ask them, kids who've been to the festival, have you ever talked to a scientist? They'll go, nope. And so one of the things is to identify ourselves as people who think scientifically and let kids know that this is what we do and how we do it. I hope that answers.
And I think one of the feedbacks that CENI has gotten from a lot of these events is the connection between the actual people that are attending and the people giving it. And it's an incredible exchange of information, especially for you college students here. You presenting to K through 12 kids changes their lives.
Absolutely.
When there's an old person like me talking about something, they don't really care as much. But when they get to talk to you, oh, how did you get interested in social science? How did you get interested in the arts? How did you get interested in this? They just absorb that just like a sponge. So for all of you students here, just if you can participate in that, it would be amazing. Other questions?
Hey, Phyllis. I was wondering about the timeline. When do we need to like let you know and nail down ideas? Is it like by noon or by
Yeah,
November
today would
11th
be
or
great. No, I'm just
sometime in between those two, maybe?
Yeah, for the science, that's a great question. Thank you. Science Festival, I'd love to know by September 30th. September 30th, by the end of the month. Yeah. So I've got these. This also, just a quick commercial. In addition to Science Festival, we run at CENI a series of field trips throughout the semester where 5th graders come to campus, and it looks kind of like a very small science festival. So we're also looking for exhibitors for that, and so that's on here as well. And those, I think I have a September 15th deadline on that, but that goes all semester. So if you miss that deadline, do not despair. Turn in and do it anyway. So yes, September 30th. And then between, I think we have one workshop prior to September 30th to help people design and experience. And then there's a few in October to help people learn to workshop about working with children, because the conversation and the words that we use matter a lot. So we've got some workshops coming up, and then the festival itself is November 12th.
Other questions or thoughts? I think one of the other things that Phyllis had mentioned was about the liaison program. And Tom is online watching this right now. He'll know what I'm about to say, which is there's been a lot of conversations over the past few years on machine intelligence and machine learning and AI and what machines can and cannot do. And I think one of the things that we came across over the years in developing CENI and developing the Science Festival is one of the things that machines cannot do is make the connections between all of us. And the liaison network, you know, instead of, yes, we need to have something like smart boards in every classroom, maybe not. But what we really need is we need to have the ways for students in Richmond to connect to students in Southwest Virginia, connect to students up in the Arlington area. How do we do that? And for the Science Festival, it's how do we connect all of you to these students in the state? And there's no amount of machine learning or AI that can make that kind of personal connection that, as I mentioned a moment ago, truly through documentation has transformed people's lives. You didn't mention about Hokies Like Us, is that?
Hokie for a Day.
Hokie for a Day.
Yeah.
Hokie for a Day, but it's the same kind of thing, really making those connections between K through 12 kids and all of you. Any other questions or thoughts?
I'll throw out one closing comment, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
And that is when it's a little bit of the starfish story of the person that's walking along the beach where all these starfish have washed up on the beach, and you're picking up the person's picking up the starfish and throwing them back in the ocean, and there's thousands of them. And the friend says, "Why are you doing this? You're never going to make a difference." And the answer is, "Well, I've just made all the difference in the world with that starfish." So it's a little bit of that, where we don't know which kid that comes to the Science Festival whose lives will be changed. But we do know that when we talk to people who are very successful in their careers and who go far and do amazing things, they often talk about something in their childhood of going to a museum or going to a thing where somebody got up and talked, or somebody talked to them about what they were doing, and that's how they got into it. We don't even know who they talked to. Like the person who got the Nobel Prize in chemistry that described that very situation couldn't remember who it was that came to her school and talked to her. But it's so powerful because kids are just ready, and they want to know what all these possibilities are. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Phyllis, and thank everybody for attending. Just one quick announcement to answer Tim's question one more time. Next week's Playdate is going to be Community Pulse, which is a student seed grant group looking at data and community response to different questions that they've asked and the ways of visualizing that data. So that's going to be a great student project presented next week, and I look forward to seeing you there, and just want to say thanks again, Phyllis.
Thank you. And if you're here for PDN credit, make sure you